Dad promised at that time he would never hit his son or daughter with anything except his hand. And that was so that he would know how much it hurt, because it would hurt him too. Fathers, abuse is not discipline. When you hit your child to the point where you continue hitting them over and over again and tell them awful things about them, that's not teaching them anything except to grow up and be like you. Is that what we want? That's not what Dad wanted. And I know that God doesn't want that of our parents, and doesn't want our children to be that as well. Dad was a great teacher. I have to say I'm spoiled by all the things he had. But he didn't just teach it, he lived it. He made a promise when he was young that he would never say to his child, don't do as I say. Don't do as I do as I say. You ever heard that growing up? I not once heard that. Dad held true to that promise. And along those lines, when you think about the idea of peace, how do you do that? How do you keep from hitting your son while you're enraged? Dad told me on so many occasions, go to your room and wait. Oh no, let's just get it over with, please. I thought it was just extra torture. I thought that's what he was doing, but I realized now as a father, what he was doing is he was giving himself time to cool down. So that when he came in, he wouldn't just hit me out of rage, but he would hit me out of love. That he wanted to sharpen me and shape me into the image of Jesus. That is not an easy thing to do, and I don't pretend to have that down pat fully myself, but he is a great example for that. Not once did his punishment ever leave a mark on his body, but not once did they fail to leave an impression on my heart. James 3, verse 17, the wisdom that is from above is first pure then peaceable, gentle, willing to yield, full of mercy and good fruits, without partiality and without hypocrisy. Now the fruit of righteousness is sown in peace by those who make peace. We didn't have lots of money. I tell people, not a big deal. We lived in a trailer for a lot of years of my life. There was a part of my room where I could lift up the heat vent, and there was a hole all the way to the ground. I could see through there, and you would think, well, that's bad. No, that's actually good for a kid that doesn't like vegetables. Hey, Mom, can I go to my room real quick? Pocket full of something, come back, and everything's okay. We didn't have money, but we had peace. We had peace and love. People say, well, I've heard this. Well, everybody yells, I'm Scottish. That's what we do. I'm Irish, or I'm Italian, or I'm, fill in the blank with whatever country your ancestors came from. Only twice in my life did my parents ever even raise their voices at each other. And that, now that I'm older and have been in the houses of other people, even that is not what most people would call an argument. And I've heard people say that everybody argues. I've heard Christians say that. And let me just say that is not true. Nor does it need to be true. You might say that's impossible, but I know that Dad would say, no, with God, all things are possible. If you'll just trust in Him and in His ways, there is a book on how to parent, how to be a good husband, how to be a good wife. And Dad read that book every day, the New Testament, as I mentioned, and the Old Testament. Proverbs 17, verse 1, better is a dry morsel and quietness with it than a house full of feasting with strife. Proverbs 15, verse 17 is similar. Better a meal of vegetables where there is love than a fattened calf with hatred. Dad helped make our home a safe place. Never felt scared, unloved, or insecure in his presence. I was naive, though. I grew up believing that a mom and dad always stayed together and that they always kissed each other before the dad left for work and came home and greeted each other in a loving way. And I grew up thinking that this is just the case of things. And then I learned, oh no, that's just the way Christians are. But I remember the first time riding in the backseat with some Christians who were arguing with each other. I was so uncomfortable. I didn't know what to do. It was really an amazing thing that Dad did. Now that I appreciate that so much. Well, he'd also say random things, as Buddy mentioned. He would say things like slick bang hangers and drick and drans. There ain't no reason to wash your hands. But I had to wash my hands anyway. So I'm not sure what that was all about. But one thing that Gardner mentioned, I do appreciate too. He never told me what to think about things, but how to think about them. I wasn't spoon-fed the gospel. I was led to the gospel in a way that was not just like, just follow me without thinking, but to think. And Dad would say things like, whatever idea you have, take that idea as far as it will logically go. Draw deductions from it and see if it ends up where it ought to be. And if you get to a point where you realize, no, this is not a good conclusion, the problem is with your premise. And go back and come up with a different one before you come again. But the idea of reasonable faith is that which answers the most questions while raising the fewest problems. That's a direct quote from Dad. And to quote my other dad, my in-law, without doubt, faith is not possible. There has to be a provision that causes some people to doubt in order for other people to have faith. No one has faith in math. It just is or it isn't. And Dad was really good at showing us how to do that. So Dad wasn't perfect, but he directed me and many others to the one who is, and I appreciate that so much. We're going to sing the last hymn in your book. It is well with my soul. We do not sorrow as those who have no hope, because we have a hope that is based on evidence and something that gives us a secure faith that we can trust and that we can know. So let's sing. When peace my God come up and lead us in a closing prayer and also in a prayer for the food. But please stay in your seats right after that. The Army military is going to do a presentation to my mom of the flag. So Beto, if you would, please come up and lead us in a prayer, closing prayer, and a prayer for the food. And after their presentation, I will tell you what to do as far as the food goes.
Let us pray. Our Father in heaven, we come before you extremely grateful, Father, because as we gather together, we remember someone who has dedicated his life, as we remember, pointing us towards you. And as we talk about Brother Doug, we cannot deviate from you, because that's who he always reminded us about. Through his teaching, through his words, through his love, through his wisdom, through his life, he always pointed us towards you. And we are so grateful, Father, for having had the blessing of his life as an example for us to praise you, to gather together tonight especially, and to worship you, because that's what he did, and that's what he wanted us to do. We're grateful also, Father, because we know that this is not the end. He is where he worked his life to be. He is with you, worshiping you. And we thank you for that hope, Father, that hope that we also remember today. That if we, like Brother Doug, study your word, love your word, dedicate ourselves to sharing your word with others, as well as looking for what you are trying to teach us every day, we will be with him, gathered around with your people, worshiping you for eternity. As we look at his example, Father, as he looked at your son's example, help us to love each other the way that he loved his brethren, not looking at race or ethnicity or what language they spoke, but to look at everyone as a soul that needs your word. Help us to have his zeal. And as we remember him, help us to always put the effort that he put to praise you. Father, at this moment we are also grateful for the food that we are about to share. Thank you for always blessing us, Father, and allowing us to gather together. We praise you and we thank you for all these things. In your Son, Jesus Christ's name, amen. Amen.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank everybody for that. I know a lot of you have come from out of state, and if you are from out of state and are going to need to leave sooner rather than later, we want to let you guys be the first ones to get the food. So please, everybody who is a native New Jerseyan or is staying nearby, please let them go and get food first. As you notice, there are not enough tables to fill this whole area. You may have been counting, and if you, anyway, they're going to have to move them around. So as people get the food, you can get food on both sides of the table. So please, if you live out of the state of New Jersey, please file over there onto both sides and go ahead and start the food. If you are in a seat right here, if you could just get in your seats, or I guess maybe pick up the seat to some extent and move it off to the side, and line the seats around the sides here, and we'll need some of the guys to move the tables out into this area. Just kind of try to do that in an organized way. That's best I can tell you, I suppose. Sounds good. And I'm going to empower you. I'm going to empower you to do that as best as you can. I think that's all I was supposed to remember about that. But anyway, thank you for that. While y'all are getting your food and sorting things out, in just a minute, I'm going to read some of the letters that I got, and you just keep going around. Thanks.